Okay, now we're back and we're going to go ahead and get our fabric prepared, get it marked, and stitch out our embroidery. So let's get started here. Now, I've taken my Dream Weave Ultra. Now, the best way to do this is, and I actually called the expert, the queen of Dream Weave Ultra today, and asked her what is the best way to put this on, because Debbie Homer Hofheinz is the queen. So what we're going to do is you want to lay it face side up on your ironing board with the fusible side up. So that's rough. Then you'll put your fabric over it. And then we will start pressing from the center out, center out, center out. So we're going to press from the center out. Once we have that done, we're then going to steam the heck out of it. I want you to just steam, steam, steam. And once you've steamed it real good, that will have applied our Dream Weave Ultra to the back of our fabric. The next step we're going to do is we are going to mark our fabric. Now what I did is I marked the X and Y centers on both, and what we're concerned with is this upper left-hand quadrant right here. We're going to be concerned with this. And so we're going to put in here our design. Now what I did is inside this quadrant, I gave myself a center. But I want you to notice what I did. I did mark an inch around all four sides. And that's just actually a visual for me. I could have measured from the edge over and told you the amount. And that has been done, of course, in the instructions, in the step outs. But I just did this for the visual because when we do our self-binding backing, it's going to come right to this line. Now, I went ahead and I centered that. So I made of the upper left-hand quadrant, I also centered that. Now, I have printed my design out in its entirety, and that was just because I want to see where it's going to go. And let me tell you something too. You can always, if you print a template and place it, even if you're not using the template for perfect placement, it's always nice to see how is this going to look in relation to my fabric, to my hooping. So now that I've seen where this is, we're going to do our first hooping. Now as you can see I've got the center line here. Now notice the center line of my step one is not the exact center of the design. That is why I placed this on here so I would know where that center was. So by lining up these, it just gives me a good idea where I'm going to place this template. So now I've got this template in, and I've got it in place, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel off the back here, and we're going to take our template tearaway off. And what template tearaway is it's printable on one side, and then it has a protective paper that, of course, because we're on video, it's not going to come off easy. There we go. We've got a protective paper to pull off. Now it will stick back to your protective paper, so don't throw your protective paper away. In case you're going to make several of these, this will stick several times, so you won't have to print more than one template or one set of templates. Now I can see where this is. I see my center line. That is easy. This is my center line here because I've done my X and my Y axis, and I'm going to do my center line here. So there we go. This is just right in there, perfect. Now I'm going to line this template up along my center line. Now I could have stuck these two together and put it all down at once and then peeled this one back up and put it back on its paper. Either way, it works. All we want to do is get this in place for our first hooping. And this is not the critical one. What is going to be real critical, I mean, it's critical in the fact that we want it in the right place for our placemat, but what's really going to be critical is that second one, because we're going to need to line up that stitching line absolutely perfect. So now that I have this on my fabric, I'm going to put my template in my hoop. Now, prior to that, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this Perfect Stick tape, and we're going Stitch Perfection tape, and we're going to take this, and I tear it rough. And the reason I tear it rough is so that I can peel this off. It's really hard to peel off if you don't have an edge to get it with. It can be really tough. So what I do is, now for this hoop, this is a very small hoop. We used a 4x4 so we wouldn't have a huge design, and that was all about time. But you're going to only need to take off a couple of inches, and probably on this hoop, I would have probably used the 1/8 inch tape, but this works just fine. I mean the 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch tape. I tell you what, let me hold this down, peel this away. Come on, baby. Peel, peel. Okay, there we go. There we go. I got it. There we go. Okay. And we are going to put this on all 4 sides of our hoop. The reason being here is that we're going to use this to lock this hoop in place. And we used to use this type of hooping all the time, because we didn't have cameras, we didn't have all the hooping aids that we have today. So this was kind of like how we did it in the olden days. But let me tell you, when you're matching up a design, there's no better way than the way that I'm going to show you. Now, I've got that on all 4 sides of my hoop, and I'm going to put we're going to put our template back in. And how you make sure your template's going the right way is you can read in the right hand corner, the lettering is correct. Now what we're going to do here, what is critical is you're going to see I've got 2 marks right here. I've got a corner mark, and this is my matchup line. Now what is important about this is, because we are using the full size of the hoop, this is going to force this to all center in this hoop perfectly with this design. If I removed these marks, this design would move over and center in the hoop, and it would be very difficult to get it in the right place. So by leaving these little marks in, and we went over that on our software video, but just reminding you. So what I'm going to do now is I am lining this up so that those corners are perfect, lined up right here and right here. Now I have stuck that down. So now this hoop's going to hold in spot for me, so I can put my hoop on the back. And since this is stuck down because we use that Stitch Perfection tape, it's going to make it easy for me to pull in my back one. Oh, and I forgot one very important thing. We need to take this off. I'm telling you. Let's come back. On the back, I've got my Dream Weave. I need my Floriani Perfect Stick Tearaway. Now, I'm sticking it to the back. We're used to using this in the hoop, shiny side up, so we can pull and stick something down. The reason I'm using this on the back is because I need the properties of Stitch and Wash, but if I use the Fuse on Stitch and Wash, with the fuse and everything, it's a little bit bulkier feeling. It's the same product without a sticky, but this works better for what we're doing. We are going to stick this down. It makes it much easier to match up that hooping if my stabilizer is perfect to the back of this. So you can see I've done that. Okay, so now I've stuck this so when we turn it over, it's correct. So I've got that perfect stick on the back here. So again, I'm going to take my template in my frame, and there's little notches that hold your template in place, and we are going to make sure we hoop it and those corners are exact. That is extremely important. So now that it's stuck down, I can move my back hoop in, and I can just push this into place within the back hoop. Make sure that your hoop is not taut. Not too tight. The back hoop, we want the inner hoop to just slide in there without a lot of pushing and fussing, because we don't want to shift anything. And I'm going to double check. Yes, those are still lined up perfectly. That's what I wanted. So now that that's lined up, I am going to remove my template. I'm going to remove my template tearaway as well. And I'm going to stick this back onto its backing paper because I intend to make 8 placemats, and I'm going to use this every time. So now that that's all hooped nice and we have it in, we're going to go over to our machine. We're going to put this on our machine, pull up our design, and of course then we are going to stitch this out. And we're going to set and embroider. And now I'm just going to push my button, and it is going to stitch out the first half of my design. Now you noticed how it went up to this corner to check where it was. Now it's checked, it's going to go ahead and start the design because it checked the corners of my hoop. Now, by the miracle of video, of course, this is going to come out very quickly. Just so you saw how we started and we're stitching. I'm going to pull this out, remove it from the hoop. There we go. And you can see we have stitched out the first split of our design. It's stitched out. So right here is our half of our design. So now here's where it's critical. You're going to see that there is a black line of stitching here. That was the last thing to stitch. That is the critical place where we're going to line up. If our stitches on our second design don't hit perfect on this, our design is not going to line up. So how we're going to do this is, again, we're going to use our template in our hoop. Going to put our template in our hoop, if I can pick it up here. All right, there we go. Now, before that, I'm going to take my second template tearaway. And I don't know if you can see this line from here to here? That is this line from here to here. It's the same line. So what I need to do is I need to line this up perfectly on top of it. I'm not going to worry about this printed part here, because while it's kind of sort of accurate, remember, we've got pull compensation and everything going on our fabric. So we don't want to line up all of this. If we have split a design, what we want to line up is the split line. So we are going to, again, peel this off the back. Let me get this started. There we go. Alrighty. And I've cut these out, and what I did is I cut them out about 1/4 of an inch outside these little, our little corner lines. And I cut it real close to the center line. So that would be easy for me to see through the template and line it up. And this is the critical part right here. Now if you've got this lined up perfectly, okay, now when we go to stitch, this will stitch right on top of this line, and then it'll finish our design correctly. So now what are we going to do? We're going to use this same template insert, and we are going to line up those corners. So make sure those 2 corners right there are perfect in your frame. Good. That has got those corners lined up. Now leave everything in, because if it shifts while you put it in the back, you're going to need to keep, you would need to rehoop it to make sure that everything stays lined up. Now I'm going to double check. That's lined up. This one's lined up. It looks great. So now that I know that I lined up that one, my corners look good. Again, I'm going to remove my template, Put it back on its backing paper, shiny side. You stick it to the shiny side. If you stick it to the other side, it's toast. There you go. So that's stuck back. So now we're going to go back to our machine. Here we go. Okay. And now what I'm going to check is when we bring up our second design, what's going to happen to us is the first thing that's going to stitch is this long line. We want to make sure it stitch perfect. So I'm going to go back in. Let's go to our design, set and embroider. And now I'm going to see if it lines up with that line. So I'm going to put my foot down. We're going to come up, and I'm off. For whatever reason, I am off. It's not stitching perfect. So I'm going to bring that up. I cannot imagine what I just did, but whatever it was, I did it. Okay. Now this says it's stitching. If we check, let's come check. Let's go down. All of our machines have the ability to check. If I come right here and I check, let's see, what did I do? Because I stitched a stitch, it's not going to do it. So let's go back to return. Let's go to embroider. Now what you have right here is on most every machine there's some kind of trace function. So I'm going to hit the one on mine and I'm going to say go to the upper left hand corner, and when I do, look at that. That is stitch perfect. Stitch perfect. Now I'm going to bring that needle back up and I'm going to say go to the bottom left hand corner, and I'm going to put this down, and that is not stitch perfect. So you can see I'm off just a hair here, so that's not good. So we're going to take it out and we're going to redo, because we want this to line up good. So I'm going to loosen my hoop, and probably what I did when I pressed it in my hoop, I didn't press it even, push it in even. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to come back, make sure my template is lined up on top of that line. Okay, so it's pulling out. Now that's not a good thing. Okay, all right, there we go. So we're going to go through our little process again. Here we go. Inner hoop. Okay, let's line you up. Corner, corner, line up. Line up with my line there. That looks good. Press it. Make sure your hoop is open enough to press it in even. There, I pressed it in nice and even that time. I still look like I'm lined up good here. Good. Tighten that screw that I loosened so I could press it in nice and even. You want this fabric taut, but you don't want it screaming for mercy. There we go. Let's pull this off. Shiny side. Let's go back to our machine. And let's do it again. Okay, so what I'm looking at is this bottom one, bottom left-hand corner. Now let's see where we are. Oh, good. Now we are perfect. So let's go to the top again. Foot down, needle down. Perfect. We are in good shape in here where it's going to start. So we're perfect. We're going to stitch out. So I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to go ahead and get started stitching, and it's going to stitch down that line. Perfect, perfect. And it's going to continue stitching, and by the miracle of video, I'll let this go ahead and get started for you. By the miracle of embroidery, let's say okay to this so we can see our screen. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start stitching out our design. So now that we have done that, it's going to stitch, and we are going to end up with a perfectly done, beautifully done. It's going to do my queue in the middle first. I'll let it just get started so you can see how we're going here. So you can see my queue is going in. And this will all stitch out very nicely and perfectly because we have lined it up exactly. So let's go ahead and with the miracle of embroidery, let's take this off and come over here and see what we're going to do next. So the next thing I want to do is I have finished my embroidery. It's all done. So we are going to remove our perfect stick. We're going to remove that from the back, pull that away, and we're going to pull it away from around our design so that we have taken it off everything except for our design. So we're going to pull our stabilizer away and make sure it tears around our design. So we've got that done. So we're going to come back. We're going to change our machine over to sewing, and I'll come back and show you how to put that self-binding backing on.